Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday, August 22nd, 2023. This summer has flown by for me. I don't know about for you guys. But, anyways, my wife sent me something that somebody wrote somewhere about, 1/5 of the population or something being illiterate and having, the conceptual ability of a, fifth to third grader or something like that. So I searched for it. 20% of Americans cannot comprehend above third grade levels now. So data from large-scale literacy assessments and studies indicate that roughly 21% of the U.S. adults that are classified as functional illiterate or read below the fifth to third grade level, meaning they struggle with basic everyday tasks like reading a simple sentence or writing short form. Additionally, broader modeled estimates that show that over 54% of American adults read below the sixth grade level proficiency. That's the kicker right there, right? So, um, when I was a little kid, I had, I had dyslexia, which I still do. So, which is, I look at it as something that's helped me in my ability. Dyslexic people see the whole. They have trouble seeing the parts that make up the whole. And so it's a different way of, a different level of comprehension, right? Um, and because of this, I was struggling in school, which I don't remember, didn't aware of, wasn't aware of. And so my parents took me to get tested, and it turned out I had a high IQ. My mom didn't tell me I had dyslexia until I was in my 30s. She told me I didn't have it because she was fucked in the head, right? But I used to love animals. Like I used to want to, I was passionate about learning about animals. And I had encyclopedias at home, and I'd go to the library and read about my favorite animals when I was a little kid. And I was reading adult level books when I was a kid because I had this, yeah, whatever it was. And I was reading at like a 12th grade level when I was in, fourth grade. But, I had dyslexia, right? Like it was just, my comprehension level was very high. And so my parents thought I was like retarded or something, retarded or whatever. Like I was, because I was struggling. I was having some issues at school, which, whatever. But they should have known I was smart. And so then they were kind of intimidated by me because of the tests, right? I went to this Yale thing, which I was lucky I didn't get put in some fucking Yale program because I had incompetent parents. Could have happened. But, I never really thought of myself as being smart. Like I didn't really like school and whatever it is, right? And I went to a school where there's kids getting perfect scores on their SATs in high school, you know, like I was smart in a different way, but I didn't, um, and that is carried over to where I think most people. Well, here, let me just say this. Let me read this, and I want to go to a voiceover. Um, this thing where it says over half American adults can't read below a sixth grade proficiency level. It should say read above, um, which is fucking shocking. Like I knew people are stupid. Like comprehension level. Like that's the big thing here. We were talking about reading comprehension. About 21 to 22% of U.S. adults lack basic proficiency, meaning they read below a fifth grade level. We already saw that. More than 130 million people aged 16 to 74 perform below sixth grade reading level, limiting their ability to progress complex multi-step information process. So that's over half the population. This is and I made this realization, like people who are 100, 100 IQ is always the mean. They adjust the IQ so that the average intelligence is at 100, and that can they can lower the standard so for that 100. But you think about this, with all the technology we have and all these things, this is how stupid people are. Let me switch over to voiceover here. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Saturday, August 22nd, 2023. This summer has flown by for me. I don't know about for you guys. But anyways, my wife sent me something that somebody wrote somewhere about, 1/5 of the population or something being illiterate and having, the conceptual ability of a, fifth to third grader or something like that. So I searched for it. 20% of Americans cannot comprehend above third grade levels now. So data from large-scale literacy assessments and studies indicate that roughly 21% of the U.S. adults that are classified as functional illiterate or read below the fifth to third grade level, meaning they struggle with basic everyday tasks like reading a simple sentence or writing short form. Additionally, broader modeled estimates that show that over 54% of American adults read below the sixth grade level proficiency. That's the kicker right there, right? So, um, when I was a little kid, I had, I had dyslexia, which I still do. So, which is, I look at it as something that's helped me in my ability. Dyslexic people see the whole. They have trouble seeing the parts that make up the whole. And so it's a different way of, a different level of comprehension, right? Um, and because of this, I was struggling in school, which I don't remember, didn't aware of, wasn't aware of. And so my parents took me to get tested, and it turned out I had a high IQ. My mom didn't tell me I had dyslexia until I was in my 30s. She told me I didn't have it because she was fucked in the head, right? But I used to love animals. Like I used to want to, I was passionate about learning about animals, and I had encyclopedias at home, and I'd go to the library and read about my favorite animals when I was a little kid. And I was reading adult level books when I was a kid because I had this, yeah, whatever it was. And I was reading at like a 12th grade level when I was in, fourth grade. But, I had dyslexia, right? Like it was just, my comprehension level was very high. And so my parents thought I was like retarded or something, retarded or whatever. Like I was, because I was struggling. I was having some issues at school, which, whatever. But they should have known I was smart. And so then they were kind of intimidated by me because of the tests, right? I went to this Yale thing, which I was lucky I didn't get put in some fucking Yale program because I had incompetent parents. Could have happened. But, I never really thought of myself as being smart. Like I didn't really like school and whatever it is, right? And I went to a school where there's kids getting perfect scores on their SATs in high school, you know, like I was smart in a different way, but I didn't, um, and that is carried over to where I think most people. Well, here, let me just say this. Let me read this, and I want to go to a voiceover. Um, this thing where it says over half American adults can't read below a sixth grade proficiency level. It should say read above, um, which is fucking shocking. Like I knew people are stupid. Like comprehension level. Like that's the big thing here. We were talking about reading comprehension. About 21 to 22% of U.S. adults lack basic proficiency, meaning they read below a fifth grade level. We already saw that. More than 130 million people aged 16 to 74 perform below sixth grade reading level, limiting their ability to progress complex multi-step information process. So that's over half the population. I made this realization, like people who are 100, 100 IQ is always the mean. They adjust the IQ so that the average intelligence is at 100. And that can they can lower the standard so for that 100. But you think about this, with all the technology we have and all these things, this is how stupid people are. Let me switch over to voiceover here. This is something I've made a few videos about this because I kind of realized, you know, I when I was a little kid, I had an IQ of like 140 something, and I had a head injury and used drugs and just whatever it is. I'm sure my IQ is significant, probably in the 120s or something. And I always thought that there was that wasn't high, like, was higher than average, but not, and I've never been a school person. And so, I had never thought of myself as being in the upper echelon, top 90%, and that's what I am, which is, for me, scary. Like, you know, I mean, I already knew people suck, right? Like, I mean, from years of doing what we're doing here. Well, before I personalize this, let's just talk about what this means, because it isn't about what level you read at, because people can have, like I said, dyslexia or something like this, or never really. When I read. Sometimes I like will imagine words, or I'll guess at the words coming. I don't know how much that has to do with dyslexia or just whatever it is, but like I'm impatient, even though I talk real slow here, my mind works fast, and so I'm reading. I often try to guess at the end of the sentence, like I'll read, like so, which I mean, not even like consciously. But anyways, there are people out there who are intelligent, have issue with reading. You know, I wonder what this says about people's ability for math. So you think about America being this educational, and we've had public education, which was a new thing. Public education was not always a thing, but America did it, and America has led the world in all kinds of various things over the last 100 years. And yet we're getting way stupider, and some of that you can attribute to the internet. But if they're this bad at reading, it's probably worse than math. But really, where it is their memories and ability for people to comprehend things, to make sense of things, to process things, what's going on around them. That's why they're bumping into shit like NPCs. And some of this is dietary. You know, I lived in, India for a while. And in southern India, particularly, they're vegetarian. I don't know what percentage of people in India are vegetarian, but it's a pretty high amount. But those who eat meat, it's a totally different, like, I mean, meat there is different. They won't eat beef, like these cows. Krishna was a cow herd. It was, so that became a sacred animal. And cows are wonderful animals, but they have, they wander the streets there eating garbage and eating cardboard and shit because they're just in the middle of the city and they like obey traffic laws. It's fucking weird. Like they're on the right side of the street, like they're on the street where they're moving along with traffic. It's, but anyways, there are a lot of people who have a lack of protein there. Like a lot of there's so many people, and when you see the people, they're like functioning on the level like just slightly above like an animal, like a monkey or something. They have, they're 4 foot tall. They're not developed physically. They're going to live lives of if they live to 40, 50 years old, they live in these huts, like straw huts in the middle of a city. They'll be just like a community of these temporary like thatch. I mean, the buildings are like 8 by 8, if that. Like they live in that place, and they have all their belongings there. They have a little hot pot kind of thing, and and they're small. Like they go and they shit on the street. They have like I mean, no toilet, no whatever. And you see these people like, and you're like, they're not even like how can you even comprehend what it is to be that person? Like your level of understanding of the world around you. They can do simple mundane tasks, and a lot of it comes from nutrition, and then of course the toxicity. We have in America, we have better nutrition. You have most people eating meat, which is, again, there's benefits to meat physically. Like meat is good for you physically, not so much spiritually. Predatory thing, it makes you selfish, and there's these things. There's a trade-off. But most Americans eat meat, and they have education, and they have a house, and they have something. I mean, whatever it is, even if it's a shitty apartment, tenement housing or something, and access to information with computers. Like, there's something like 4 billion people have a toilet, and 6 billion people have a cell phone. This kind of thing. Access to information. People get educated. They go to school. And yet, the toxicity of our food, the toxicity of people's food fucks up your liver and other things. Your liver is a very important organ, and it processes toxins. And, people drinking alcohol, drugs, and things. And that's going to make you stupider because your liver loses the ability to stop, to filter out toxins, which then go into your system. And, I mean, if they're putting like fluoride in your water and, drugs in your whatever it is, and your these like whatever these things that are spraying, these poisons and toxins, they affect your ability for comprehension. They affect your ability to to have for whatever it might be, comprehension ability of these things. And so because of that, your brain is not going to work as well, and you're just going to be in a fog. It's like you're stoned all the time on toxic chemicals because alcohol and drugs usually are something that's a toxin that inhibits your ability. Like most alcohol and drugs make you stupider. Like if you take alcohol, the first part of your brain that gets affected by alcohol is the part that allows you to see yourself as others would see you. So that's why people will act foolish and do things and say things they normally won't, because that part of your brain goes, "Oh, this is going to be embarrassing. You don't want to do that." How many times did you wake up from being drunk and you're like, "Oh my God, did I do that?" And now with fucking video cameras and shit, like you say things you normally wouldn't say, you act in a way you normally wouldn't act. So, and then it impairs other parts of your brain, right? It just goes on taking out, like, now you're functioning like at a much lower level because they're, all the reasons. And so the more toxic our society has become, the more it has affected people's ability for comprehension, memory, things like this, memory loss, memory retention, information retention. And so this is, we've all gotten stupider, like all of us. And so you have people who, and there's so much like dumb shit out there. That's the other thing. Where Cardi B is being celebrated, like people like that, the Kardashians, all these like stupid people who are heroes to young people that look up to them. And like, so there's no sense of, um, you know, when I was in India, there was this French guy that nobody liked. He was kind of obnoxious. And it was my first trip to India. So I was, in my 30s. And he, for whatever reason, we had a good conversation. So he liked me, but he pissed like everybody else off. Like people wanted to fight him, like Indian people, like they were, like threatening him because he ended up being like he was there for extended stay and he did work for Master Charge. He was like a secretary or something. And he asked me to come and play some games with Master Charge's grandson. And I think he had a friend over or something. They had this game called Carom, which was, a game where this little, we had a similar game when I was a kid with a pool cue. And with this thing, you flick these little discs on a wooden board. And the kid had, like a pamphlet of games like they had in India. And one of them was called Head of the Class. And he said, I want to be head of the class. This kid is like probably, 5 years old or something. Young kid. And I was like, and I realized in India the amount of pressure that's put on kids to perform academically. Like there was a kid later on when I lived there. It was like my fifth trip to India with my family, my kids, and there was a school there now. The Saj Marxism had a school, and there was a kid who was like 11 years old or something, and he was so scared of taking a test, he just got on a fucking train in India and disappeared, which is like crazy. Like the trains there are fucking crazy. And the population, the kid just left. Didn't show up for like 3 months. They found him. But he was scared of failing a test. Like these kids commit suicide, some of them young, because they fail tests because they have this overwhelming academic pressure put on them by society, and even more so by their parents and families. And in America we don't have that. Like education's cheap. We have a disdain for education, disdain for smart people. There's this dumbifying of the population, right? So there are a lot of factors that go into this, phenomenon. But we're getting stupider. Like it's getting idiocracy. Idiocracy is set in. Like there's the data. And now, with ChatGPT and any kind of AI, it's definitely taken away people's abilities. I always talk about how I used to move to places, and I've moved quite a bit. And within a short period of time, I could make a mental map. I knew where all the roads went. I knew the directional aspect of the place, like a mental map, where I could say, all right, if someone asked me, how do you get to this store? And I would say, oh, you take a left on this street and this street. I don't even know the street names around here, like, close to my house. Like it's just, I still have a mental map after a while. My wife will does a lot of the driving. I don't go out as much. She gets car sick. So, what I used to do, and my ex, was never drove because she had a head injury and she got her head stuck in an elevator, which don't even fucking ask me how that happened. So I did all the driving then. So it's like kind of a weird thing. But, because of, I didn't have a cell phone. I was late to the party with cell phones and GPS. So I just had to read maps and like, it's good. I like doing it. Like when I was a kid, my parents would travel down to Florida and I was able to read the maps as a part of some Cub Scout bullshit thing. Like, or Boy Scout, I don't know, one of those fucking things where you get like a merit badge for reading, man. I like doing it. Like I thought that was cool. I like looking at maps. We had these plastic maps of India and Africa that were like three-dimensional maps, and I used to sit on top of them and look at and study the land and the places and read about those, because I was into like where tigers lived and shit like that, like these kind of things. I was doing research about animals and I was figuring out where they lived, right? These things on the map, like I would, so my dad told me he was going to take me on safari, but when I got older, I realized he couldn't go on a simple boat trip or car trip or a plane trip without taking Dramamine because he got motion sickness. And he was kind of a loser. Like there's no way he's going on safari. So yeah. So anyways, but when you think about the dumbing down of America, this is everything, because when you're talking as a truther to people, and these people, it's beyond not even having abstract thought. I used to say 60% of people don't have the ability for abstract thought, but this is way worse than that. Like they're just looking at you like, an animal would look at you when you're talking to them. They can't comprehend what you're saying about truth or concepts about government. They're just incapable, and they have no idea. Like, they're just, see spot run fucking bullshit right there. Like they have no ability for complex thought. And so going back to my own personal thing, like everyone has their thing. Like, some people just think they're smarter than anybody. And, like when I was playing games with my parents, I would tell them how to move, like, because they were so slow. Like we'd play card games or board games and I'm like, no, go here. Like, just fucking, let's go. And my dad said, we should just be cardboard figures. Like just be cardboard. I should just be playing by myself because I was doing the whole, and I wasn't cheating. I was telling them the right move, but I didn't think about it that way. Like I didn't think, later on I looked at my parents as being, you know, they were above average and educated people, both had college degrees, but they were incompetent and like stupid, like in their in multiple ways. Like I was beyond them, right? But like I never really thought about it. And being the youngest in my family, people were just always older than me, and I didn't mind that. Like sometimes when you're the youngest, you're competing with your siblings. When my siblings were much older than me, there's none of that. I got more than enough attention, probably too much, so which I didn't really love. So, I didn't have that sense of like wanting to be better than them and competing. Like, everyone's, like my youngest son was grouped together and he was always the last to, everyone else had mastered things by the time he did them. So he wanted to have something he was better at, right? You get that thing. But, I didn't have that. But like when you relate to other people, some people just want to be better and smarter than other people. But I never really thought about it. But in terms of my perception, to me, it was always nice to have people that were like older than you, like just whatever. It was something where you would have people who were, you like, it's so much easier if you had like a good government with good people, good moral people, smart people who are effective. And, it's so much better when you have competent people, right? And I was always kind of a screw up, and and when you're a screw up, you want competent people around you. I was always under functioning and underachiever, and so one of the things that happened to me when I woke up, to 9/11, that was my big thing, 9/11 stuff. When I woke up to the government and the people that lead the system, being shitty, it's like who's driving the bus? Like there's no bus driver, this kind of thing, right? Like you realize that these people are just, not just the con men and the Trumps and the grifters, but they're stupid and they're the short-term people, and that that not only they're liars and deceivers and evil, demonic, but like stupid. Like there's a stupidity. There's a short-lived thing. People having short-term gains, not thinking about how it's going to affect them in the future, how it's going to affect their children and grandchildren, how it's going to affect future versions of themselves as they reincarnate into this mess that they help to perpetuate, right? And so, like that was not a good thing for me. Like how much nicer it is if you thought if people way smarter than you were running the government, right? I told you this thing. There was this kid who did the Sajmark meditation. We have these whispers of the brighter world. This French woman who herself were freaked out by these prophecies, and she was channeling the second master of the system. There's more of these there's more of these messages, channeled messages than any other time in human history. There's like 20,000 of them. It's a unique situation for a variety of reasons, and a lot of these prophecies were like, and there was already things that were said in literature about what was going to happen. What's happening now was predicted. Like this is, we would humanity would lose its fucking way completely, and would go down this demonic path, and then civilizations would collapse, and people would the population would be reduced, and the people that were left here would be not this. So you have so many people that are they have an animal level comprehension ability. Like you have animals that are smarter than them probably. There's animals that have like a fifth grade, like they're like 5 years old. Like there's like, I mean, dogs, of course, things like this, chimpanzees, and I assume cats, and some of these animals that are, of course, dolphins and these things that are elephants that are really intelligent. Some like crows. There's really smart animals. But they have I mean, like an animalistic level of comprehension. Like there's the majority of people now, or whatever, just above that. Like they're just a step above, being like an animal, right? And you can see it, and that's was predicted in all these things. And there was this kid. He was going to Virginia Tech, and he rented a room so we could all meditate in there. There's no preceptor. You'd go to a preceptor's house, but there's about 20 people who did the meditation, and a preceptor would come down from Washington, D.C., or up from North Carolina. And I was talking to him about these Whispers Prophecies. The book had just come out in 2005. And he said, no, that's not going to happen. There's too many smart people running the world, and they'll fix the problems. And this is a smart kid, a kid who was, a very competitive Indian educational system, was able to get himself to America for higher education, and he was going to, whatever, be very successful. But stupid, right? Like, stupid on a different level. The people who are smart but stupid, and when you talk to them about truth or stuff, they can't do it. They can't go there. And so, for me personally, I'm not wanting to be upper echelon, and it's scary as shit for me to feel that way. Like I've been talking about this in several videos. I'm not scared, like, scared, but, it's not comfortable. Like, I realize that I'm in the top 90% in terms of, which I assume many of you guys are, that can comprehend what I'm saying here. This shouldn't be rocket science, but in terms of social stuff, in terms of understanding the world around us, there's a small group of people that can perceive and deal and be comfortable with knowing this stuff, right? With knowing that there's no one to drive, the people driving the train are grifters, and they're retarded, and they're, short-sighted, and they're bad people on every level. And, and they just are able to control the masses because the masses are so fucking stupid. You can control the masses with like fucking candy bar and a fucking, porn video, like whatever. Like you can, I mean, the masses are, like whatever, like this idiocracy. And the spiritual part was what really got me, because, I came into the Sajmark system, and especially in America, I was always one of the younger people. And so, even though I was in my 30s, there wasn't younger people than me coming in. Like in terms of being Americans, there was only a few of us my age. There's probably 20 of us in my age group, my generation. And then in India, there was these elders and these people. And I thought that all of them were reading the books and doing the practice. And they were better than me at this. And many of them were nicer and more spiritual, whatever. like just in terms of hospitality and working for God. They were more devoted. They were into it. But I saw over time a lot of them were just frauds. They didn't really internalize it the way that you were supposed to. They didn't internalize the system. And like I never thought of myself as a candidate to be the master of the system, and I'm not. Like I just don't have the personality for it. But there are plenty of people I was like, well, this guy could probably do that, or this guy. But these guys all folded. Some of them were really spiritual and were really great, and really were devoted, and they were. But even then, they just they lack something, whatever it might be. And when the dodgy thing unfolded, I realized most of the people were pretty much worthless. I mean, I, maybe about 5,000 out of hundreds of thousands of people that did the meditation, and that this is the best system, like for connecting to God that's ever existed for humans. And there's people who are outside the system that are, spiritual in their way, but they don't have the benefits of a system that is like supercharged. And so as this thing played out, I realized that in terms of like you can't rate yourself or any kind of thing like that. Like spirituality isn't like that. But most people just don't want to try. And I was gifted a great experience. Like I had these amazing experiences based from maybe some past life or something. My destiny, whatever it might be, that I was able to do the system in that way. I was able to experience things that made me know that this was incredible. And most people just don't get that, like not that kind of thing. And if I hadn't gotten that, I wouldn't have done it. It was the experience that like completely, like my namesake, St. Paul, who was knocked off a horse in Damascus, who was Master Chargy in a past life, where it was like, I am 100% believer in the system. I've wanted to quit multiple times because it's just so fucking hard being doing a spiritual life, especially now. You always want. There's going to be times you just want to quit. It's just you want to take the fucking blue pill and go back into the matrix. It is. It's like that, and I just can't. Like I just could never do that because it's the most convincing thing that I've had, right? But I know, like, you guys can kind of tell, I'm kind of an asshole. Like, I'm not, I mean, I say mean things and I have mean thoughts and, I mock people and I'm irritated, whatever it is. Like, the kind of personality that doesn't do well. I mean, certainly I'm not a person who has the ability to be a leader, because I like to sit in the back and make fun of people, and you can't do that fucking if you're a leader. So like the kind of personality I have, and some of like mocking people isn't spiritual, and the other things that I do that are part of my character or whatever. And I could not do those things. Like it's not like I love them so much, but at this point, who gives a shit? Doesn't matter. And so, a person like me, who's always been a slacker and an underachiever, and whatever it is. And the other thing is, in the Sajmark system, they talk about how it's better to be a friend of the king than it is to be the king himself. The king has all the pressure on him. The king, I mean, you see this with these like shows like Entourage and shit like that. Like the people who are the people who are the stars of the friendship, the ones who excel. They have all the pressure on them to perform. There's a expectation of excellence, and they have to keep in shape, and they have to keep on going. But if you're a friend of a king, you get the same lifestyle, and you don't have any of the pressure, right? Like you just once in a while make a suggestion or whatever. You just you work on the friendship and these things. And so I saw the benefit of that in the Sajmark system. There's a master, but you just have to be there with the master, and you're basking in his spiritual achievements. Like you don't have to deal with all the bullshit that he has to deal with. And that like appeals to me, just being a slacker and just who I am as a person, so just to how I, think about myself in relationship to other people in the system. It's hard for me to matriculate into the adult world like it just was. Like I, didn't like it. I'm not into the system, and that's part of it, but it's just whatever it is. So when I realized maybe last year, I mean, I kind of realized in the middle of making a video, it's one thing to be one of the smarter people, like to be in the upper 90%. But when you're somebody who's like, there's no way that should be. Like, there's no way I should be at the bottom, right? But even spiritually, I think about that. I don't think I should be in the upper echelon of spiritual people, but most people don't even want to try to be spiritual. In terms of they don't want to go on their spiritual journey. They don't want to have a relationship with God. They're scared to ask God questions, right? Master Charge, you said about Christians. Christians are scared to talk to God. They're scared to have a relationship with God, the Father. So they created a son because it's like you're scared to talk to your boss, so you talk to your boss's son. Your boss's son isn't as much of an asshole. Your boss's son is, a little bit more, softer than the boss. So you go to talk to the boss's son because, you want something from the boss, but you're afraid to ask. And that's how Christians are. Most people are with God. They don't want to have a direct relationship with God because they're scared of what God's going to tell them. Like, knock it the fuck off. Give up on your bullshit stuff. Most people know they're doing wrong and want to continue to do wrong, right? They want to continue to do the wrong thing. They want their addictions. They want all the stuff they know that their soul isn't a part of, and they know they don't want to get on a spiritual journey. So just by, omission, is it omission? Or by lack of trying, by lack of participation. Anybody who just will connect with God and has a willingness to connect with God and prays to God is willing to look at themselves the way God would look at them and expect more for themselves and put more effort into their spiritual life, you're in the upper echelon. Like 80% of people or more, 90% of people don't even want to try. And like half of those people are too stupid to do it. 60% are probably too stupid to even do it. So you have, 40% or left of that. And, 35% of those people don't want to try. And they try for a little bit and they're like, well, this is fucking brutal. I don't want to do this. Let me go back to sleep. And so just by participating, you're already in the upper echelon of human beings. And when I realized that, we're fucked. Like if I'm the cream of the crop, we're fucked, right? Again, I'm a failure in terms of, being an underachiever in the material world. So like, but, in terms of my, whatever I'm doing in terms of my inner life or whatever, I'm participating. Like, and I'm, and I could be better, but, most people aren't even fucking trying. And then the people who are doing it, a lot of them just are weak or I don't know what their problem is. A lot of them fold under the pressure. So a lot of my feelings about humanity come from that. Like, I should be the least spiritual person. Master Charger used to write his diary, I feel like the least spiritual person in the world. And he was already in higher levels that, human beings had even the great saints of people of the past hadn't achieved yet. Like he was already being moved along in the system. And he felt not spiritual. And so, I should be one of the dumber people with, in terms of my, whatever it is. I mean, and one is certainly not, everyone should be, there should be like 80%, I should be the lower 20%. Like imagine the world if that was the case, right? That's the world that we would want, where people would be, where I would be the starting point, that where I am right now would be the starting point for people. That would be the baseline, the rock bottom, and people would be going up from there, but that's not the case. So I know we're fucked. Like I know that there has to be drastic changes, like there's no, people don't even want to try a little bit. So, but they would have to fucking kill it. Like they would have to get into it and be like incredible at developing their internal worlds and connecting to God and and controlling their egos, and they're not even trying. So, and like I said, the majority of people are too stupid to even think about it. And that's why, as a truther, it's, it's just a lot of stupidity out there. People should be able to look at the Trump assassination attempt and immediately know it's fake. And, the truth community failed, like, epically. If it was Joe Biden, they would have seen it, but still, you should see it whoever does it. And so, like, there's just nothing. Like, there's not a lot of hope out there. There's not a lot of inspiration. All right. So, that's where I'm at. And let's get into the other stuff here. So I've often said this. Here, let's watch this.
I'd rather be out there. Well done, Winslet. I told you, do a Holocaust movie. The awards come, didn't I? See?
They're all laughing about that. She did a movie, I think, called The Reader. That's the one I think he's talking about. Which she was played like I think a Nazi who was hiding out somewhere, like an ex-Nazi, and then got busted. I'm not sure. The joke was, which everybody laughed to. I mean, you can see it. They're all laughing. Here we go. Do a Holocaust movie here.
Awards come, didn't I? See?
They're all laughing. These are famous people. Do a Holocaust movie and the awards come. Well, why would that be? Like, they all know because they know who their bosses are. You know, I've often talked about how many fucking Holocaust movies are there, or movies that are related to it, and they're not fucking very uplifting movies, right? I mean, they're not. You know, they're just filled with, you know, negativity about the human race, and victim consciousness and all of it. But they know who their bosses are, right? And now we can see it now more. You know, that, I mean, you do a Holocaust movie and then you get rewarded. Like, it's something that they want you to do, the people that run the system. So who are these people? Well, now it's pretty obvious. It's been rumored for years, but you couldn't talk about it. But they're all laughing about it because they know, Harvey Weinstein and these guys who are running Hollywood and the people with the money to make these films, they like Holocaust movies. And these actors and actresses, it's like a gatekeeping thing. Okay, so this is weird stuff, right? The left hates this. Her theory falls apart. Attorney blows up the Candace Owens theory in 60 seconds. No one's buying your bullshit. But they brought in this guy, Wilson. Is it Andrew Wilson? I don't know. Gives a fuck. And here is this video. It takes time. It's time when Candace Owens told me 5 days after Charlie Kirk's murder. And you see here for the rest of these videos, it says nothing here, right? There's nothing here. But here, this one says Charlie Kirk, checkmark, and Andrew Colvett, not checkmark. And here's the video here, which I'll show you a clip of it. It's got 74,000 views, so it's one that's popping. And if you click on these, it shows you can subscribe to Charlie Kirk, which I'm not, which is checkmark, and he's got 5.86 million subscribers. Charlie Kirk does. And Andrew Colvett, who has 2.6 thousand subscribers, and you can subscribe to his channel. And so it looks like this is a joint. Sometimes you can put a video up. I know that Chris Webby, the rapper, and Ren, the English sort of rapper, whatever his name is, whatever his thing is, they put out some joint work, some kind of interesting videos and things. And they were on both of their channels, right? You could, it was a joint. People do joint things together, and you can put the video up on two people's channel. It goes public at the same time. Like, there's ways to do that. I don't know how, but people do that. And they did this here with Charlie Kirk's channel, with Andrew Covert's channel. And here's his piece of shit channel. And he doesn't have this. He had, this video here, which was 9 days ago. He's got 1,000 views. Would you pay $20 for a burrito to the full end of immigration? And I don't know if he's getting rolled on his own channel. Justice is coming. And this one's, there. And so he's got 5 videos here. These are from months ago. I mean, this one's got 181 views, right? Sean Ryan goes mental, calling MAGA pedo, protecting Israel lobbyist. And I guess they have stuff there with him and Erica. So these are, from Charlie Kirk's show. They have a podcast somewhere, and it gets whatever amount of views there. And then they post some of their clips on YouTube. But Andrew Covert has a joint one here. This one's on Andrew Covert and Charlie Kirk. But there's no other where this video here isn't. It says it's on both channels, but it must be unlisted here. Like, he has it unlisted, maybe to draw people in, draw people into his channel, because they know that they're just parasiting off of Charlie Kirk's. I don't understand their motivation for this, but his channel sucks. He's got no subscribers, no views, right? And this view, they got 1,000 views.
There is a new article from.
And I don't know if this is. See, this is a joint one. Charlie rolling in his grave with these two clowns. You can't get a delicious steak burrito at Taco Bell. No. I'm already paying $20 for tacos. These people are not Andrew Kovitz fans. There's no one say, dude, Andrew, what are you doing? You were actually human in the weeks. You were actually human in the weeks after Charlie Kirk assassination. Not sure who made you get your head right, but you sure have corrective conversations, obvious. And then, they go on from there. So none of these people are his fans. Like, he hasn't, even on his own channel, there's nothing here. They don't have anything here for him. There's nobody here like, oh my God, great job, man, you're fucking so wonderful. Which almost everybody can get. Like, you can get somebody out there who's like, hey, dude, you rock it. Like, I mean, even those sucky people get somebody, some positive people trying to encourage you. So, some words of encouragement. And this guy doesn't fucking have it. There's no Blake. Does Blake have his own channel? There's Blake here. Here's Blake.
Segment where there's about the delay effect from.
All right. So with that in mind, let's go to the other video. So most of you guys know I do this meditation called Saj Marg, and the fourth master of the system, who was the legitimate fourth president, the legal president, and the fourth master of the system. He hijacked the whole system, the whole trajectory of the system, and turned it into something called heartfulness. He's trying to glom onto the properties that were bought by donation, but other collective wealth of the members. There's no fees charged to the master, so the system all had jobs, and he was a rich man. He owned 7 pharmacies in New York and Staten Island. He was a multimillionaire, and he decided to grift and come up with scams and just be really stupid. And watching that is very similar to what's happening here. It's Charlie Kirk sucked and his movement sucked. But Charlie Kirk had a direction that he was taking his organization, and he was breaking ties with Israel. He was hurt by their attacks on him, and you can see it. With his last interview with Megyn Kelly, he was talking about this. And his last, months on this planet, his last 3 or 4 months, he was bringing in people who were criticizing Israel. And they didn't like it, his, handlers and people, and they more than likely whacked him. I mean, no one will ever know. Like, we'll get into that in a moment here. Because, like the facts are, So, these guys came in and they took whatever he was doing in a totally different direction. And they placed themselves, especially Andrew Covert. He was their guy in charge of publicity. Now, I have never seen that he was ever on Charlie Kirk's show. Like Blake was. Blake was Charlie Kirk's, little sidekick, his little weird sidekick, occasionally. But, as far as I know, Andrew Covert wasn't a part of it. And he came in and substituted. And he sucks at this. Like, undeniably sucks. He's just unlikable, no charisma, nothing, doesn't connect with people. And, his message and stuff is the opposite of what the majority of people who do TPUSK want to hear. And so people just don't watch. Same thing happened with this guy, Dodgy. Master Chargy could go to any country and just, hold and give a talk where, where everyone's just, mesmerized by his ability. Like some people have, great storyteller. I mean, I inherited some of the stuff from him that I do here, right? Whatever it is. Like he had, what I have here in a much more refined way. And, these people just have it. And whatever gift that Charlie Kirk had, I mean, a lot of it came from being Charlie Shekels and getting money. But, he was able to win an audience. Like when you go out on social media, and it doesn't mean you're a good person or you got good ideas, but you're able to win an audience. Donald Trump has won an audience. He has been able to reach out to people and talk to them in a way that they like. They want to hear him. They like listen to him. They come out and see him, like people who have charisma. There's politicians that have it, like Hillary Clinton didn't, but Bill Clinton did, right? Both of them are shitty people and unlikable, but Bill Clinton is someone that can hold an audience. And there's people that can do it, and these guys can't fucking do it, right? And they have taken his show and taken it in a completely different direction, which they get told all the time in the comment section, right? Every time you read the comment section, they're like, this isn't Charlie Kirk's show anymore. And when they brought Erica Kirk on, they said that they had thousands of hours of Charlie Kirk's, campus visits and talks and things he did, and they would be releasing them. But they're not going to do that because they haven't. They've only released a few of his videos. So right now it says Charlie Kirk on it, and it's 5.6 million subscribers. But those subscribers are too lazy to hit the unsubscribe button. Because in reality, they're done with this fucking thing. They're done with this channel and these people. Right? And so they bring this guy on who just got fucking wasted. I saw the pickle video where he couldn't open a pickle jar. It's pretty funny. Like he brought this woman in and she couldn't open it. Then he complained that she made it all greasy. And then, and then he had another kind of gayish dude with him. And for 5 minutes, they couldn't open a pickle jar. And then some big freaking beefcake guy came from back behind the scenes and came in and popped this jar off. It was nothing. Right? And, that's in, like, he's debated all these feminists and, and they use this pickle jar, and then Candace Owens used it against him. And so this guy who got fucking shellacked by Candace Owens but became a household name showed up on their channel here.
I don't think that you even know what you just said there and how much of a bombshell that is. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah.
Did you just say that Candace Owens told you that if the wrong people take over TPUSA, she's going to burn it to the ground?
Okay, so the title of the video here is It's Time, What Candace Owens Told Me 5 Days After Charlie Kirk's Murder. That's not some bombshell thing. She clearly would tell you that anyway. And I'm not defending Candace because she sucks, and we'll get into that in a moment. But let me just, say these things. I was talking about this stuff with my own personal situation with Saj Marg meditation. When I became a preceptor, I had to tone down my bullshit, right? Like my personality stuff. And a lot of it was fake. A lot of it was, me just not being who I am, kind of an asshole. Like when you become, whatever you are, but when you move along in your spiritual path, your essence comes out, but you still have some individuality. Like you lose a lot of your individuality because your ego, a lot of your ego has to get burned away. But you still have your kind of essence, and everyone has like kind of different things, and you got to be who you are. And so, if you reach some level and somebody else reaches some level, there's going to be differences. And each master, the system is going to be different than the previous masters. But you just have to stay true to where you're following God's orders. And you realize that you've been put in a certain position. Like I'm perfectly made to do what I do here, in terms of disseminating the information I've learned from my spiritual life, my spiritual practice, to you guys, to this audience, in this format as a truther. Like I'm perfectly made for this, but it wouldn't be good at being an administrator or some of these other things. I mean, I guess, I'd have to change and adapt to do that, if it was something that it was part of my destiny. But you always have to walk this balance to staying true to the message and not bring in too much of your bullshit, but also be a human being so people can relate to you. You can't be just this, fucking holier than thou piece of shit, like these kind of people. You got to be a real person, authentic, and yet you can't let your authenticity distort the message. At least, it's going to distort it a little bit, but not, you have to be very aware of that. And so when you take over for something like what they've done over at TPUSK, when you take over for Charlie Kirk, you have to keep that message going, right? Wherever, and there was a movement there. Charlie Kirk was changing. Again, he's a piece of shit. But there was a movement, a growing movement. Of course, that movement was going to already be smacked backwards by Trump sucking. Like a lot of that movement was predicated on Trump not being the piece of shit he turned out to be, which we all knew. Anybody who knew he was going to do that. Like I knew, most people, it was easy to know. But the way that they've hijacked this thing, and they don't have any personality, they don't have anything like, that's interesting about them that makes people identify or connect with them. And so they've hijacked the message. They're obviously being controlled, TPUSK, and then the whole thing with Andrew Wilson. these are all fakers. They're pretenders. They're posers, and they're not good at even. They're not good at even in that sphere of being a poser. You could still be interesting. You could still have charisma. You could still connect with people, and they don't have any of that stuff, right? You have to honor the initial message, and when you distort that and you hijack it and take it somewhere else, and you make something completely different. I mean, Andrew Covert, the fact that he has his own YouTube channel, and he's trying to connect this to some of these videos to his channel, because this is not his channel, and that's what people say in the comment section all the time. This was Charlie's channel, and you can't come in here and run your bullshit, especially when it sucks so bad, and go against everybody's. I mean, all these people. If you believe in democracy, which these guys also claim they do, you get rolled in your comment section. I'll probably repeat this when I read the comments. The comment section. I got a phone call there. The comment section, and they're saying you're hijacking the shit, and they're like, "Fuck, I don't care." Like they're being told every day they suck, and they just go out there and who's paying them to suck, right? Like they're not making any money. I can tell you they're not making any money off of They're not, the ads they run. They're not, there's nothing there. They have 600 employees over there. At least they used to. So where's all the money coming from? Are you just getting, because no one's listening. You're not influencing anybody. No one listens to you. I mean, the people that listen to you are the dumbest of fucks. And, we have these, I mean, people can manipulate dumb fucks, but dumb fucks aren't really good at shit. Like they're not, I mean, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to get out of that? I mean, I already went through that in the beginning. All right. So let's get back to it here. Okay. It's about 3 hours later for me. Same time for you. Let's get
Burn
back
it to the ground. One of the reasons that I agreed to do the interview is because my own audience has had many questions about this.
Okay. You didn't agree to do the interview. You paid her $300,000 to do it. Is this the interview here, or does it mean you agreed to do this interview? Because you're desperate for fucking clout, bro. Nobody knew who you were before the fucking debate, right? And if you have a bigger audience than these guys, like even though you're fucking, you're just trying to gain more, you have a bigger audience than these two guys.
Since I began discussing these lunatics online, essentially,
Sure.
and that's what I consider them.
Lunatics online, right? You're a lunatic for questioning the official story. See, this is the problem these guys have, right? There's a lot of bullshit in the truth community, right? There's a lot of disinformation, a lot of dumb fucks. I mean, I already went through the low IQ, the low comprehension ability of most people. You got people like that out here, who can't fucking put together a complete sentence, and then, coming up with bullshit theories and then, just repeating what other people say. So there's a lot of disinformation. But the truth community exists and alternative media could exist because the people who run your system have been lying to you about everything. You're lied to about every fucking part of your existence. You're lied to about God. You're lied to about your origin of our species, where we came from. You're lied to about your science. You're lied to about your food, your health care, your medicine. You're lied to about your taxes and your wars and your currency and your economic system. Everything that's there is a lie. Everything there is, there's lies in it. There's no truth, 100% pure truth. And because of that, you have this other thing. It's the official thing sucks so bad, there's now an unofficial thing, right?
And I thought that maybe if they heard a lot of what I had heard, that they would kind of understand my thought process and how I got to some of these inductions.
Okay, that was not going to happen at all because you didn't have a thought process. Everybody had heard what you had heard. You didn't have anything new. TPUSK does not have extra information about Tyler Robinson. Right? So the first part of their premise, the whole thing about what they're doing, is they believe that Candace Owens is the leader of this idea that Erica Kirk and TPUSK are complicit in his murder, and the official story is bullshit. And, she is a leader for dumb fuck TPUSK former people and her own audience. So Candace Owens had her own audience where she got, similar views on other topics. So she hasn't really increased her views. As far as I can tell, I could go back and scroll. But she had a very healthy audience or she's buying views, one of the two, I don't know. Between 1 and 2 million people. So she had, a pretty big following for years. There's people who liked her other bullshit about, fucking that Prime Minister of France, President of France, or whatever, Macron's wife having a dick, right? She had stuff there. And those people just were already calling bullshit on TPUSK. And so the people who gravitated to her, or people who are doing similar things, is a vast amount of more people. And all the liberal people who never bought into this bullshit anyway, who have, truther type of mentality. And so the people who are still interested in this thing, it's much more than Candace Owens. She is just, like when people think Alex Jones is the whole truth community, right? Well, it's silly when he isn't even a real truther. And so Candace Owens is a late to the party piece of shit. But all of us who have seen the lies for years, this is just, a part of a set pattern that the liars put out a bullshit story about assassination attempt. We've seen so many of these, these assassins, these fucking manifesto writing pieces of shit, patsies, be rolled out one after another for years now, going all the way back to JFK and 9/11, shit like that. So for all of us, we're not lunatics. It's silly. Like, you're a silly little person that's coming to this thing. And he's like, his energy sucks. He's weird as fuck. And he's got just an unpleasant voice, right? Like he's just.
And so I'd like to start by going all the way back, and maybe you can tell us actually what the relationship was between Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. What actually was it?
Yeah, I'd like to go first there, even though you have far more to
Blake, you can first.
say, Andrew, because I can just speak from my perspective as someone who arrived late 22, moved out here in 23, that...
Could you be more heterosexual? You really masculine, testosterone-having dude. I mean, could you really be more fucking gay? This guy, look at him. Look at. I think he's got a little gay little twink little filter there, alien twink filter. I mean, how does he get such a shiny little head there? But I guess they're using the same camera.
I have never met Candace Owens.
And this guy, in some shadowy fucking figure, smoking a cigarette. Okay, so he never met Candace Owens. Let's go back to this. Look at this shadowy piece of shit here. It's like you're making a fucking, what, are you making a fucking drug deal with this guy?
Out here in 23, that I have never met Candace Owens and don't know her. Maybe I saw her in person once at a distance. Maybe I shook her hand. I've never had a conversation with her to my knowledge. And I think that speaks to something, because I was with Charlie for close to 3 years, and I feel like I met most of the people Charlie was super close with. I met donors. I met his family members. I met his team. I met a lot.
It's funny that he put donors before family members in his team, right? But let's have the guy who never even saw Charlie and Candace Owens interact to talk about their relationship, right? Look at this. Look at this little twink here. Look at this little peppy little twink. Look at this drug dealer over here. This dark shadow. I mean, this is wonderful.
And I don't know Candace.
That's crazy.
Oh, I like to use that as a preface, but you have...
Boom. Yeah, that's great. You don't know Candace. Candace don't know you.
You can say about that.
Yeah, and Blake, you have that great video
Yep.
that everybody plays of you reacting to Candace.
Oh, yeah, where I'm kind of like raising my eyebrow a little.
To say Blake was early on the being suspicious train. Yeah, if you go back,
He was early on being the suspicious train.
far enough. I mean, that's why. I mean, I put out that tweet basically saying, Candace, your central foundational lie is that you and Charlie were friends. You were not friends, right? Show me something from recent, the end of Charlie's life, the last 12 months or whatever. And I think she, and then I said 18 months, 24 months.
Okay, so Candace Owens, I got a new nickname for her. Candace Owens, we're getting close, guys. Candace, we're getting close, guys. Owens and Charlie Shekels are unlikable, piece of shit. They're grifting. They're, parasitic people who are living off of something that we built and was so much better before these fuckers showed up, right? Like, I don't like Candace Owens. She's annoying. And, all the things that I talk about. But she has, back when she was presenting information, and I had to sit through her bullshit because she would present some real information. But then when she rolled out Mitch fucking the Hammer Snow, I showed that meme so many times. And she rolled out that guy as a totally unreliable written witness. And so all of her unnamed sources have zero credibility. If that's a guy who's willing to be named and come forward, if that's one of her legitimate sources, then all the people that she claims as sources are not real. You could just say some, unidentified source or some anonymous source gave me this information. That the anonymous source could just be you or your friend. Somebody else could say something. Because, she didn't vet that guy, Mitch Snow, and you could tell that she would just put out unreliable information. She had a tip line where people would tell her something, and she would just run with it without fact checking or anything like that. And she never comes to the point. We're getting close, guys. We're getting close, guys. We're getting close. That shit. But anyways, as sucky as she is, she did put out emails and messages and things, text between her and Charlie. And if I mean the dates, some of them were in recent times, and there was a text that she received for someone else, and I think Andrew Kovic could affirm that it was real. It was a thing where he was going to audit the he confirmed it was a real text, and it came from Charlie's phone, and he was in a group chat. He said he was going to audit TPUSK. He was going to change the CEO. He's going to get rid of that other guy, Tyler Boyer, who Candace Owens said, unnamed sources, said that he was hitting on male interns there. I mean, there's a whole gay thing going on there at TPUSK. At least, according to her, and according to our own eyes with these two twinks. Very effeminate, non-macho, these tough, get her done kind of fucking, right-wing Republicans. Gun-toting right-wing, get her done, tough guy, working with their hands, right-wing Republican Christians. And these guys are not that. They're polished metrosexuals or very effeminized, right? But she released a bunch of things, including him saying that he wanted to bring Candace back in. And that she spoke at a number of their events and she had a contract to speak at their events, right? And so there was something going on there. Like she had a relationship with him. And even if they didn't, even if what Andrew Kovic says is true and it's not, I mean, based in all of these things, and I'm sure that Candace Owens has busted out text messages and things, their thing with Charlie. Even if they had no relationship and he was her tormentor, Andrew Kovic said in this long message that he's referring to, that, Charlie was terrified of you. Charlie made Charlie look like a complete bitch. He was worried she was going to turn and the organization was just appeasing her. And so if that was true, I mean, one, it makes Charlie look like a complete frickin', pussy. But two, wouldn't they have come up a plan to make sure Candace didn't turn on them, right? And then he's going to say this other thing about her. We'll come back to this point then.
I think she showed something at 22 months, and so I got community noted, right? Okay, whatever. What I can tell you is that I think Charlie and Candace were friends back in 2018, part of 2019. That did not end well at all, actually.
Could you give more details there? Even I would like to hear that. Like, what caused her to depart, if we can say?
Well, I mean, there's two things, really. And part of it is you got to give credit where it's due. She was a rising star. She was growing really fast. Charlie...
You got to give credit where it's due. She's kicking the shit out of you, right? In terms of viewership and engagement, she's I mean, your comment section is littered here. I'm going to look at it. This has been up for a couple of days, and they delete their comments. But we'll go to the comments when we're done with this.
Famously sort of offered her a job. What did you... sorry if I missed something that you said, Andrew. Oh, okay.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, so...
You're good. Look at this depressed motherfucker. Like, how long before this guy fucking drives his car into a lake or off the bridge or something?
She was, Charlie offered her a job basically right on meeting her. Kind of saw that she was somebody that could help Turning Point, help the movement, in his opinion. And then they she explodes onto the scene. Kanye had that tweet where it's like, I like the way Candace Owens thinks, and it was kind of like a rocket ship, right? And then they had, but she became more and more difficult to work with, more and more issues with the team. And then she had that moment
when you say difficult to work with, what do you mean?
I think she was very aware of her rising star power, and so she started exerting more demands on timing, on where she could be deployed, what schools. And
so she was becoming like a prima donna.
You could use that
That's
word.
what I.
That's what that doesn't sound like a prima donna. It sounds like somebody who was making Charlie famous because he had this TPUSK thing, but really his YouTube channel wasn't even around for 2 years, and she was more well known than him. I had heard of Candace Owens before I heard of Charlie Kirk, and I saw her and I was like, oh my gosh, she's so annoying. I mean, she was even more annoying back then. So right wing and stupid. But when you are the star of the show, then you get to kind of pick the cherry, the cherry fucking venues. Like, that's not being difficult. Being difficult is being demanding, being bitchy, whatever it is, right? Like, you're not.
I've definitely heard complaints from people who have worked with her.
Yeah, and that
Name the complaints. I mean, I'm sure she could be difficult, but I bet there are a lot of complaints about the young men around the office when you guys glare at them and and then you stare at them and you do your twink thing.
continued on after, when we started working with her later on. Just I think she canceled an event with us, and our event team still tells this story. Like the day before, and we had to scramble to get it replaced because she ended up in like France with Kanye or something the next day. And so anyways, the point is that it was just an ongoing kind of growing frustration. And then she had that event where she basically said Hitler was great if he just would have stayed, in.
All right. So when he said Blake has been suspicious of Candace since the beginning, of course he was, because first of all, he's laughing at him saying that she said Hitler was great. And that's not what she said at all. She said, Hitler is a nationalist. She's talked about nationalism. And she compared, nationalism to what people think about Hitler's nationalism. I mean, I can find the quote here, and I should. I'll go find it. But she didn't say Hitler was great, right? It was conflated because she was a right-wing person, and the left-wing media that these guys are so much against and whine about made it, into something it wasn't. They go after the left all the time, but not in this circumstance. Now, Blake, of course, he was suspicious of Candace and didn't like her because he got fired from Fox and Tucker Carlson's show as head writer. And I don't know how this guy was his head writer, this fucking piece of shit. But, he got fired for racist rant. You know how hard it is to get fired from Fox for being a racist? Right? Like it's that, I mean, it's really bad if you hear what he said. Like, it's really bad. It was about blacks, and so he used the N-word various times. And, of course he didn't like Candace. But he's a guy who, said real racist shit. Let's find the Candace quote here. So this is from C-SPAN. And these are liberal people in I think this Congress or the Senate, grilling Candace Owens here.
30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. He was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. Problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so
there's nothing wrong with what she said. She's definitely had plastic surgery since then. There's nothing wrong with what she said, right? She didn't say anything. She didn't at all compliment Hitler. He said that if he just wanted to make Germany great, and be nationalists and make your country great, which again, I don't believe in make America great again. I mean, I believe you need to be a person of the world. I don't believe you should be a centrist, and you have to think about everybody in the world, your brothers and sisters, not this bullshit that we do. Especially if not just the people who do your religion, not just your species, animals, plant life. You're all, everybody has God in them. So you're honoring God. The great thing about the term namaste, it means divinity within, the light within me is, the divinity within me is bowing before the divinity within you. So it's a, beautiful thing. But, I don't believe in nationalists, any of that stuff. What she said for what she believes, and she wasn't saying Hitler was great. She said it would have been great if that's all he did. But he wanted to be a globalist and take over the world and do those things. So she didn't say anything about him. That she was saying that people think of nationalism as racism or whatever, white supremacism. And she's, whatever. And so that's not a bad statement. And it's certainly, I mean, it was taken in the wrong context, obviously, by liberals. And so for Andrew Covert to fucking misrepresent that, right? Who the fuck is this back here? They got gypsies? Look at little Blake here. Look, Blakey.
Then she had that event where she basically said Hitler was great if he just would have stayed, in Germany.
Stayed in Germany.
Stayed in Germany, which,
He didn't say it was that he was expanding. And again, look at this guy. I mean, for a guy who got fucking fired by Fox for dropping the N-word and saying horrific fucking things. I mean, Tucker Carlson had to disavow this piece of shit. And then he was hired by Charlie Kirk, tells you everything you know about that shit. There was such a fucking lack of talent that you had to have these two twinks on your... And he wasn't hired by Charlie Kirk. He was hired by Tyler Boria. These were people that were... Charlie Kirk lost control. Charlie Shekels lost control. Remember, he said he put donors before everybody else.
There's a lot of problems.
Now, to be fair and charitable here, right? Just to be as unbiased as possible, I did go back and review that clip, as that seemed like it was the turning point for Turning Point. Was that actual clip?
Sure.
It didn't. It seemed to me that she wasn't actually trying to make any sort of apologetics for Hitler, but rather she was trying...
Exactly. Even this guy's fact-checking these pieces of shit. When this dark fucking mother-smoking frickin' drug dealer...
to make a comparison to nationalism and saying that as a nationalist, she thought he did a good job. And then, she basically just kind of misspoke and buried herself with that particular lead.
She didn't. You guys, it was the liberals who turned on her. They took her out of context, right? And it didn't matter. If Turning Point's going to hire this fucking piece of shit twink racist and fire Candace Owens, who was getting millions of views and was a star in the right-wing fucking whatever it is, I mean, it's silly. But Candace said it wasn't because of that. Candace's own story was that she was lied to by Charlie because he was meeting with somebody. I believe Candace's story as much as I believe, do you think Charlie Kirk would have fired her for that comment? Then he was a worthless piece of shit. Or the people at TPUSK? Or was it because she said Hitler and his donor said she's got to go? But what she said, she wasn't fired at all for that Charlie met with some Israeli donor and didn't tell her about it. And she felt like, she was part of whatever whatever her role was there. And she asked him, when's the last time you saw this guy? And he said a couple months ago. And she saw him having lunch with him. So, it was kind of fucked up. She baited him in that question instead of just saying, what did you meet with a guy? But he lied to her. And she said she was deeply hurt. And then she quit right after that. And then went to work for fucking Ben Shapiro of all people, which is weird as shit. Right? But Ben Shapiro was going to hire her after. I mean, it wasn't a real Hitler comment if Ben Shapiro was willing to fucking hire her, right? So none of this stuff is real. You guys are just such fucking lying piece of shit that you're getting fact-checked by Andrew Pickles Wilson.
But obviously it became a massive PR nightmare for Turning Point, right? That's how that ended up playing out.
Well, I think it's one of those statements where you can defend it and then, in isolation, and then events afterwards, I think, lend greater clarity to it.
Yeah, it was
'Cause
part of a whole.
Yeah,
And
like the
it-
defense you could make is, oh, she just meant, oh, he wanted Germany's economy to grow. He wanted to undo
Yeah.
Versailles. She didn't mean the weird, kill all the Jews.
or whatever,
Except
yeah.
then,
Right.
2023, 2024, she actually becomes obsessed with the Jews all the time.
Yeah, I would say it was part.
Wait a minute, that's completely different. This was because of what happened in fucking Palestine, which everyone should be upset about. If you're a human being with a conscience and a heart, you should be upset about what happened to Gaddafi in Libya, what America did to Gaddafi in Libya, and any of these atrocities. You might not know about them, but if you know about them, when one country has a military or a superior military and they go beat the shit out of a bunch of innocent people, most of them unarmed, move them out of their homes, kill them, abuse them, and treat them like fucking animals, and they're told their whole life, according to people like Norman Finkelstein and other Jewish people who are against this behavior, that Jews are told their whole lives that Palestinians are less than human. Of course, they hear that with Goy. If you watch that great Ari Schaefer Netflix special called Jew, where he talks about what Goy is a very derogatory term. Of course it is, right? All those things are. Every race thinks they're better than other races, people who are into their race. That's why nationalism and those kind of things, when you're really into your race, then you have to think your race is better than other races. Like it's, the way to be is to be a person who thinks about your soul and the soul of other people, right? And, there's a hierarchy, there's levels to human evolution. And some people are on a lower level, some people are on a higher level than you, and it's just the way it is. It's what I talked about in the beginning of this video. And so, like, there is those things, and those things you can be honest about. Like, some people are just more advanced, and the more advanced you are, you're advanced in terms of your relationship with God and your levels of consciousness that go with that. Like, that's a part of it. There's people who have been around longer. They've had more lives. They've had more experience. But, that's not, that doesn't relate to people's race or gender or, country or religion. It doesn't relate to any of those things. There's people who are on my level or people like me in every religion and even people who are atheists that are, similar people. You can find people that you can, connect with who are, and they don't necessarily have to be like you about your point of view about things, but they're just similar in their levels of consciousness, right? So there's those kind of things. But, that isn't something where you get racist about it. But anyways, they're just dishonest about all these things.
Part of a whole, though, to your point. Yeah, you could, if that was a one-off, you probably could have defended it. But then we had a bunch of chapters that were really up in arms about it. And then you had this, I think it was the Christchurch shooter in New Zealand that said she was this guy was inspired by Candace. It was like a whole bunch of stuff. And so
yeah, that you guys went along with that. Like some guy was inspired by Candace. That's a bullshit thing. Like who the fuck in New Zealand? Someone in New Zealand was inspired to shoot people in churches. Was that what happened? Or he was a Christchurch person. He was inspired by Candace in New Zealand, and you guys decided to fire her because of that. Now Candace said it was because of what I just told you, and then that she wanted to leave, and also Erica came in, and Erica brought her own people, and Erica was definitely moving to push her out, right? And so none of these things that they're saying add up here. I mean, Candace is a much more believable person, even though she's a liar too. So her lies are much more believable than these guys. They're the worst liars.
So it didn't leave on good terms, but Charlie, being a gentleman, wanted to make
Being
sure
a gentleman.
that the transition happened in a, I guess you would say like a kind of a soft landing sort of way. Tyler Boyer helped her start Blexit and file the paperwork. I think the original paperwork was filed at Tyler's house at the time, is the story I've heard, but who knows the details. And provided her with some donor money and donor contacts, and there was some issues there as well. Anyways, the point is there was a lot of, I think, hurt feelings. It didn't end well, but Charlie's always a guy that is willing to sort of let bygones be bygones. He was always.
He talked about them like almost like he's still alive.
always focused on the greater mission, the movement. It was not a guy
Coalition
that,
builder, right?
yeah, it's coalition.
Yeah, he took a fucking $200 million from Israel. Like he's Charlie Shekels. There's no.
Builder, and he wouldn't focus on internet feuds. He never got into that. One of the reasons that we were
Okay, so let's go to the part here where he says this thing. So, you can't prove things factually because the people who run the system control the facts, right? The people who run the media, the people who run the government, the people who run the court system, they say what the facts are or not. The facts are often subjective. The people who run the bullshit science, whatever. And so, like this idea that somehow from my bed here, sitting here, and with a computer and a microphone, I'm going to be able to tell you the truth by getting to the facts is silly. Like I don't present things in a factual way because, this is completely about my perception of things. And my perception of things is, I don't remember a time that I've been like really wrong about something major, in terms of, my assessment of it. Like there's things like I said, no one knows what Trump is going to do, right? Like, for example, but I didn't think Trump would be as bad as he is his second term. Like I never thought we'd see this version of Trump, so I underestimated his ability, something like that. But I knew who Trump was, right? And I knew it was bad when they pulled that bullshit fake assassination attempt, and I said it. This is going to be bad. Because if this is how little respect they have for you, it's his people, just wait till he's elected. But, I didn't, so there's things like that. But, I'm spot on about so many things because of just the way I did. It's not hard. It's not hard if you have pattern recognition and you have some ability to perceive things and, putting things together. Of course, the spiritual stuff kicks it up to another level. But, in terms of like all these things, you're not going to prove things factually, but you can see things, right? And I also give people insight in how to do this. And so we've already established that he said that, he's going to say this thing about Candace Owens, which she said to him. But he also said this. Candace, you and Charlie were not friends. He managed you. He kept things light and polite so you wouldn't turn on the organization. Show me any proof of genuine friendship from the last 12 months of his life, from the last 18 months, from the last 24 months, not some 2018 text, something recent. You gave him anxiety whenever you called or texted asking or demanding to speak at our events. He made me or Justin deal with you and George. That is why you tried to hire me in February 2024 for PR. I agreed to go along with it against my better judgment because Charlie asked me to keep you close and protect the org from you. The publicist tried to hire to run point, prayed about it, and felt the Lord told her a firm no and said I ultimately declined. This is your central foundational lie. You were not his friend. You were not his defender. You were not his you were his tormentor. And now you torment his wife and the organization he built. Candace, you are a fraud. All right, so he went there. He went for it. Of course, he got rolled because he always does. But here's the other. Let's go back to this clip here. So here.
And then JD hosted the show on the Monday. So I remember I flew back, landed in the airport, and I believe I was talking to Candace, and she said something that I've not publicly communicated yet, but basically it was that if the wrong people take over the organization, and she said this, I'll never forget it. She says, I will burn down that organization, I swear to God.
And you mean Turning Point?
Turning Point.
You mean Turning Point TPUSK? Okay, so, the wrong people did take it over. Like, we can clearly see this. Now, again, I'm not a Candace Owens defender. You guys know how I feel about her. Like, she does more damage than these guys do. She's doing more damage, and she's more of a parasite in the truth community than these guys are. But she, that's very consistent with what she would believe. I totally believe she said that. And she would be right to say that given what she knew, because there were different factions surrounding Charlie Kirk, and there's the direction he was clearly going. We went on Megyn Kelly's show and said that he was being called an anti-Semite and that these guys were all coming after him. And he fucking was blown away. He was deeply hurt by that. because he started criticizing Israel in the slightest way, and bringing on, a viewpoint that was taking root in his organization, and brought in Tucker Carlson and these other people, and and to such an extent that people who gave him $200 million were, I mean, he was worried they were probably going to kill him because they kill you for, so you give someone $200 million, and you're a murderous country that murders children already, like, I mean, Charlie would know that, like, oh fuck, these guys are going to come get me because fucking they probably are, right, and probably did, and so all that tracks, right, but let's let this guy say his thing.
The wrong people, and I just assumed because she was very obviously
There were
anti-Jewish.
rumors at this time, like it was
This is
chatter
5
online.
days, 6 days after, whatever it was. She said, "I'm going to burn down that organization. I swear to God." And I just thought she meant if the Jews take over, or something
Ben
like
Shapiro.
this.
Let's just say the name.
So you're okay with that? You're okay if the Jews took over that she'd burn it down? Like what the fuck you just said? Like you just said if the Jews took over and Candace burned it down, okay, Candace, go ahead, right?
People were
Shapiro,
throwing
yeah.
out because Ben Shapiro had appeared on the show.
And
Some people ran with like Ben Shapiro has now taken over Turning
Well, he
Point
hadn't
USA.
appeared. I don't know if he had appeared on that. I think he was actually going to show up the next day on the Tuesday because it went JD, the Daily Wire guys, Glenn Beck, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson that first week.
I don't think that you even know what you just said there and how much of a bombshell that is. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah.
Did you just say that Candace Owens told you that if the wrong people take over TPUSA, she's going to burn it to the ground?
Yeah, like 5 or 6 days after Charlie was killed.
And then what did? And then what?
Okay, so let's talk about all that we know here, right? So Charlie Kirk said Candace Owens is undefeated. Like Candace Owens is the biggest dick, with all these guys in here. Like Candace Owens is the, she is the, the alpha. Like she is the best at taking people down. She's manipulative, maybe borderline personality, sort of like very, I mean, she's, crafty. She has the biggest audience out of all these people. Bigger than Megyn Kelly, bigger than Tucker Carlson. Like she's maybe second to Tucker Carlson. But she's the one that's gone after people. And she's like a gossip hag, the worst of the worst, right? And so look at all the evidence that Andrew Kovac just presented. Look at what I just read that he said, that you were Charlie's tormentor. He was stressed out about you all the time, and he had me, do damage control so you didn't take TPUSK down. So Charlie was worried that she was going to turn on TPUSK and divide, her audience from them because they had a shared audience. And she could do that, and she didn't have 600 employees to deal with, especially since they were so pro-Israel, TPUSK, and like there was they were very split on this because Charlie was receiving Charlie shekels, and she was turning on Israel, right? And so with all that, and you said that he had to handle that, he put you out there to handle her, right? And then she says this to you, and this was a fear that Charlie already had, and you just dismiss it. Oh, I think he was just talking about the Jews, or he's just talking about Ben Shapiro. You dismissed that. You didn't worry about what was going to happen. She just said she's thinking about burning TPUSK down to the ground. You knew she didn't fucking like Erica. Everybody knew that. Like, you could clearly see they were not friends. I mean, Charlie and her might not have been friends, but, the time period that they say that Charlie and Candace were no longer friends was the same time period that Erica came in. And maybe Erica wasn't that psyched about Charlie texting Candace Owens, right? Like, Candace was kicked to the curb, and she was very resentful. And she didn't like fucking Erica. And she basically said that when she talked about what I said earlier. So you knew all this about Candace Owens, and you knew the kind of person she would. And you knew that she might go fucking, scorched earth on TPUSK. And she fucking threatened to do so to you. And you guys handled her the way you handled her. Why not invite her to Charlie's funeral? You can say that, oh, she wasn't friends with Charlie anymore. But, you said that Charlie also was somebody who forgave and forgot. You brought Ben fucking Shapiro in, and Charlie hated him. And Ben Shapiro said things at Charlie's, the fucking gay-ass funeral event with the sparkles and all that shit they had. He said things that weren't true, and he went after Tucker Carlson and other people who were speaking there, and Megyn Kelly. Like Megyn Kelly and him had a falling out. These were all supporters of your show, and his organization somehow coughed up $1 million and donated to you guys when he couldn't pay his employees, and he's basically going out of fucking business. They had to cancel the company credit cards, and Daily Wire fell off the fucking face of the earth because everyone was turning on Israel. And Ben Shapiro was someone who needed always to be propped up. Ben Shapiro didn't have an audience. Candace already kind of went savage on Daily Wire when she left there. I mean, that hurt them. And now everyone was turning on Israel, which made, Ben Shapiro basically in a position where it was unsustainable. And so you invited Ben Shapiro and other people to his funeral, but you didn't let Candace Owens speak when you knew, like for years, Charlie was just trying to appease her, in your own words, and you did nothing to prevent it. And you knew when you guys embraced the official story, you knew what Candace was already talking about. She has the fucking biggest dick in the room. She's the one who's going to fucking determine what this conversation goes. And you knew she was going to go after you and inevitably go after fucking Erica when, the shelf life on Erica's fake grief wore off. And so, like, why wouldn't you do it differently? Why wouldn't you make sure that this didn't happen? Like, you should have done everything. You were supposed to keep Candace close. And you were still talking to her. You weren't friends. You didn't even want to work with her. And yet you let her fucking, you just went and did shit that you knew she was going to fucking go ape shit about. And she had still friends over there that were ratting you guys out because you went through your whole organization and fired anybody you thought might be leaking shit to Candace. And so, like, could you have handled this any fucking worse? If you knew all these things, then why wouldn't you do something about it? Do anything, like just not even go in and so much in the official story the way you guys did. And come out and say Charlie had a fucking Superman neck that prevented a 30-06 from going through and hurting other people. I mean, he couldn't stop the bullet for himself, but he made sure no one else got hurt. Like, bullshit like that, right? When you guys knew other things about it. And you guys had the evidence and was so flimsy on Charlie, on Tyler Robinson. So, I mean, like, none of this stuff makes sense. You're a lying sack of shit. I mean, or you're just the worst. Like, you guys suck so bad at your job. I mean, you guys couldn't wait to run this thing into the ground. And now you're getting ratioed on your comment section. Why not respond to that? Like, you guys don't believe in democracy? The fans have spoken, and they want you the fuck out. They want you to get off of Charlie Kirk's old YouTube channel. And they want you guys to stop pushing this Tyler Robinson bullshit thing. The majority of your supporters are done. And you're not getting them back. You've kicked them to the curb. And you keep on, flaunting it in their face and mocking them, bringing this guy on to call them all lunatics. You just called your former audience lunatics. What are you going to do? Who else going to... You guys are totally unappealing. No one's going to come to you. Nobody's going to watch your shit.
Did you say?
And I
and how did
said,
she
I
reply?
told her because I knew that Charlie had told me multiple times, and multiple, I'll say 2, maybe 3 times I'd heard it. Then I was at Aspen.
Look at him.
when
And I've
repeated it.
said
Like, was he, like, fucking pooping? Like, what's the fuck?
it was a miasma.
Told you that if the wrong people take over TPUSA, she's going to burn it to the ground.
Yeah, like 5 or 6 days after
Why did that go
Charlie was
backwards?
killed.
And then what did you say?
And I
and how did
said,
she
I
reply?
told her because I knew that
Why
Charlie
don't I just go
had
back
told
here?
me multiple times, and multiple, I'll say
I didn't do
2,
that.
maybe 3 times I'd heard it. Then I was at Aspen when he
And I've
repeated it.
said it was a miasma. This would come up in conversation, and everyone would say
We all just knew if something happened to Charlie that Erica would take over, but we didn't think that hard about it because we just kind of assumed Charlie was going to be with us for the next 56 years. But at that point, I told her before it was public information.
Now, she has said that he said to her that Charlie told him that he felt like someone was going to kill him. And he told, this all this stuff, right?
Erica, I think, is going to take over. And, she's very conservative. She's Christian. Like, this is what Charlie wanted. The board was informed about this when Charlie was alive. Like, this is what's going to happen. Like, you don't have to go there. I remember because, like, a chill went down my spine. And I said, well, don't say that, Candace. Like, Erica's going to take over. And you kind of heard her react like, oh, okay. Okay. Like, it kind of
it
takes on
it takes on a different meaning over time. I think. That
Yeah.
In
And
the
it's
moment.
the big thing here is, why didn't you do something? If chills went down your fucking spine, I mean, like, this has happened. And the one reason it's happened is it has nothing to do with Candace Owens. It's because you've backed a bullshit official story. And you keep on backing Trump. And you keep on backing Israel. And Charlie was going in a different direction. Everybody fucking knows it. And so your audience was going to leave because of that. Didn't matter if Candace did anything, but her going after you made her be the face of this fucking thing that you guys created. And you knew it was going to happen. How do you fucking know it was going to happen? And now you bring this guy in to call them fucking lunatics? This guy who just failed, fucking depressed, smoking motherfucker? He's too weak. He's supposed to be some big macho right-wing conservative guy. Can't open a fucking pickle jar. It's greasy. It's too greasy. Fucking. All right, I got to move forward here. But oh my God, this is they suck so bad here. Okay, so they clearly have gone through the comment section. There's 3,555 comments. I miss you every day, Charlie. There's these comments here. Me too. And then there's nothing here support. They never say, oh, you're doing a good job. This guy. So there's a comment they wouldn't delete here. Beavis and Butthead are no match. Thanks for watching the Beavis and Butthead show. And then this other person, I miss you, Charlie. You better keep asking questions because it's the only thing that keeps us free. But, and then there's all these replies to that, like 85,000 85 replies, not 1,000. And so, then there's some kind of debate here a little bit. But I miss you, Charlie. And then, none of these things are supportive to these two guys. Or this guy, Andrew, whatever the fuck his name is, Wilson. And it said here, justice for Charlie. We're not dumb. We all know who actually cared for and loved Charlie and who cared about proximity to power and money. We all know who is on his side of truth and who isn't. The human conscience doesn't miss. Majority of people who know it is right. Again, justice for Charlie. Who else came here just for the comments? Justice for Charlie. Then there's 100 replies to that. And so none of these people are there. They might say, I miss you, Charlie, but none of these people are. It's new. Candace said, and on her show just several days after Charlie was shot, and she was referring to Ben Shapiro, and then she seemed to be relieved after she learned that it was Erica who took over TPUSK. Sweet Charlie, we miss you. Colvet, that's not true. And it goes on to that. But, they've deleted comments, and still the ones they have there's no comments here that are, in favor of this fucking show or watch this. And they don't even like this guy, Andrew Wilson. He doesn't even have fucking fans commenting here. At least in the ones that are, the ones that are here. And so the reality of the fucking thing is everybody knows you guys suck. I mean, that's just it. And it isn't just because of Candace. It's because you suck. Like, if you guys didn't do what you did in terms of just believing the official story and going after people who are conspiracy theorists and calling them crazy and lunatics, then this wouldn't be happening. Like, none of this. You fucking brought this on yourselves. And if Erica wasn't so fucking weird and she didn't grieve in such a fucking obviously fake way, none of this would have happened. But, like, this is what you guys did. This is what you presented. And as dumb as fucking people are, and they are fucking dumb, which I presented in the beginning of the video, they still can't accept you. You can't even win over the dumb fucks. And so, and you're too highbrow for them. Even they're figuring out. They figured out that this real story is bullshit. And so, I mean, just a fucking... Okay, so, just went out and cut the lawn, did some stuff outside, and got a new mouse. I don't know if you can see it. Big, giant, colossal cursor. Might be back. We'll see. I can see it. I don't know if you guys can. Like, it's small now and bigger here. All right. Big, giant, colossal cursor. That's a meme. That was a bit from the past. So, what you see with Trump, going back to the TPUSK thing, is that MAGA didn't work, right? This thing's going to be about flock cameras here. We're going to go back here a second. But MAGA didn't work. Well, let's watch this, and then I'll talk about that here.
Policy question, Mr. President. Go ahead. There's a lot of debate right now about these license license plate scanners that are going up across the country. They're called flop cameras. People are worried that the police might misuse them. Have you heard of them?
Yep.
What's your stance?
Well, it's being studied right now. You know, you have pros and cons, right?
No, you don't have any fucking pros and cons. Okay, so look at this bug-eyed fucking motherfucker. Look at this. I mean, the dude's just falling apart. All right, so here's the thing. It's interesting that flock camera is now making it to mainstream media, but I'll believe it when I see it. Like my wife sent me a thing where people are suing Amazon for spying on them with Alexa or whatever the fuck they have over there. And, you know, a judge has allowed them to sue Amazon, but when the money goes out, then tell them, call me, right? When the money goes out, then, you know, then you can talk to me about it. But up until that point, you know, I don't believe it. And so, you know, we can see with this as well, right? This whole flock camera thing. You know, if these protests and people talking about it and the internet stops them, and it isn't just about what the police might misuse them as, but it's also about what will happen with the data from the private companies that are allowing to put out, you know, private corporations putting out fucking cameras near your house. So, you know, this shows you MAGA's a failure because Trump was all about how the Justice Department was weaponized against him and all these things, and they were against spying and big government, and, you know, this was supposed to be deep state. This is deep state shit. Flock cameras are deep state shit. So that means that Trump's a part of the deep state, right? That means MAGA's a fucking joke and you got rolled and played. Of course, too many, you know, dumb fucks are a part of that. I mean, people who are, you know, third grade fucking reading level, you know, what can you say, right? But in terms of, like, you know, that being a solution, so, you know, the Democratic Party is a failure. I mean, people on the right wing do. The Democrats should know, but they're just, you know, full of themselves too. But we know that both parties are failure. And these guys, you know, these TPUS gay guys keep on pushing back against what they call black pilled. Oh, black pilled. But the reality is Trump's failure, he was your last chance because the MAGA movement said that there were rhino Republicans. These were traditional Republicans that sucked and didn't do the things that they wanted them to do. And so with these rhino Republicans, you have all the Democrats and most of the Republicans who were, you know, not getting the job done. But Trump and his MAGA, you know, QAnon bullshit, you know, deep state fighting people were going to come and clean up the swamp. And Trump became the swamp. Corruption, him and his kids looting money from the government and just out in the open, a puppet of Israel, all these things. And so now it's over with. And, you know, there's people out there who are still saying, no, he's going to do a good job. He's doing a good job or whatever it might be. You know, ignoring the fact that everyone's, you know, seeing rising prices and all the promises Trump made is not coming true. And so that shows you it's a failure.
It's being studied right now. We'll have an answer sort of as to our views on it over the next couple of weeks.
Mr. President, yesterday John Ossoff said you'd be...
Okay, so, you know, this was to an earlier press conference. This was the beginning. I didn't see this. I saw different clips from it. But, you know, the answer in 2 weeks is going to be either it's helping people or, you know, even if they come out against them, they're still going to be up there. And so this is, you know, when they go away, let me know, right? Like when there's an actual victory of something, even a small one, I mean, let me know. Like even something this small, because if they don't get you with this, they'll get you with something else. Like sometimes they have to regroup because there's too much outrage. But, you know, this also has to do with the data centers. Okay, so this is again, you know, there's cattle shortage driving beef prices higher. Trump's going to fuck over small ranchers here. Hardworking Republican MAGAs.
You're talking about it right now. But I also want to get to this. American ranchers raising concerns that demand for open land to build data centers is going to force them off their properties. Secretary, there is a need to be competitive in this space, obviously, but how will the administration help ranch owners keep their lands?
Well, I think that it is a really important debate that's happening right now. It's the great thing about America.
You're talking.
Yeah, so there's no debate. Like, they're not going to say fuck the data centers. Trump doesn't give a shit about ranchers. He doesn't give a shit about Republicans. He doesn't give a shit about MAGA, right? Like, you got fucking played. And, you know, I mean, not only are they going to take the land, but they're going to take the water. You know, they're going to fuck it all up, right? It's going to be, you know, whatever their kind of energy those things are exuding. those fucking things are gonna fry your nuts, and like you're gonna have like fucked up beef and all that shit. And so like this is Trump showing you that he never gave a shit about you. Okay, so Trump is here.
We have right now. The growth will take care of that very easily.
Mr. President, 700.
Question about it.
Mr. President, on the beef deal, which countries did you make that deal with? What are the sources
which
of
deal?
The beef deal?
I don't want to say which countries, but there are a few countries, but they're going to be sending in the highest quality beef, and it's something that we need.
Okay, so again, supporting foreign beef products from other countries, which is a dangerous precedent in terms of like we have lots of great grazable land. He doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff. He doesn't, the stuff that people thought they were voting for. Trump's like, fuck you, I never believed that. Right? Okay, so the big giant colossal cursor didn't work. I'm disappointed. It's something to do with the ScreenFlow app. It used to be able to show you, but it corrects it, self-corrects it, so that sucks. So yeah, that's never coming back, I guess, unless I get a new computer or they change the software. But anyways, the title of this video is going to be 21% of U.S. adults can't read above the 3rd grade level, and 54% of the adults read below a 6th grade level. And how does democracy work? Like, how can you say there'd be a good idea to have democracy? Like, when you have half of the country who can't comprehend anything above 6th grade level, what's their emotional maturity? What's their clarity of thought, right? It's not just the reading. It's the math. It's the psychology. It's the maturity. It's the consciousness. And so when half the population is that stupid, in India, where again there's malnutrition and all the things I talked about earlier, the politicians just hand out bags of rice, which is maybe $20. I don't know what it is now. Whatever you might pay for a bag of Indian rice at one of these world's marketplaces. But that's imported too, and that's going to be priced higher because you're in America. So whatever you pay in India, it's a lot of money for a person to get a whole fucking bag of rice free from a politician. They'll just go out and start passing them out. And those people will all vote for the politician that gave them the rice. They have no idea what the person is. So there's this woman, geez, it's amazing I can't remember her name. Let me see if AI Gemini can help me, or Google, or whatever. Her name was J.J. Alatha, right? And so when my family and I got to India, when we had our extended trip, she was charged with corruption. And what they figured out, and again, this is something, this has happened with the Los Angeles Clippers. They came out and said there's no direct evidence that Steve Ballmer, the richest owner of sports teams, the former Microsoft CEO, Steve Ballmer, that fuck, gave money to Kawhi Leonard illegally. But the evidence is overwhelming that fucking foul play is there. Like anybody who's looking at knows that, it happened. And, the NBA's been investigating it for a year and a half. And Steve Ballmer's being a fucking prick about it when he got caught. He tried to do it multiple times. They got fined for doing it before. So he's somebody who did it already. And the Kawhi Leonard's uncle or cousin or whatever it is went around to the Lakers and the Toronto Raptors asking them to violate the leagues. They can only pay the player so much money. And so they wanted him to funnel money into the player, funnel money to the player, Kawhi Leonard, illegally. And so this was already reported. And so he signed with the Clippers, right? When the other two teams he was interested in him said that they were asked for bribes, basically. So we know what happened. It's the same thing with this woman, Jay Alatha. She was a Bollywood star. It was funny, I found that she was in this room 6, and it was room number 9, and it was a comedy bit in an old Bollywood type movie. And the 9 turns into a 6, and it was like 666. Which isn't a big thing in India. Like they're not, readers of the book of Revelations, but anyway, it was there. But she had the equivalent to, I think, $10 million, which is a fortune in India, in money that she had no way of earning. Like, she just had all this money, which was clearly bribes. And it's a very corrupt place. I mean, one of the most corrupt, bureaucratical places. I mean, without, it was just obscene bureaucracy and a lot of corruption and bribes. And it was clear that she had, what they called unearned funds or something. It might have been like $20 million. That was obviously something that she had no way of saying, where'd this money come from? And the judge wrote a illegal brief, or the whatever it was, the prosecutor and the judge, and it was like a thick book, full of all the allegations and all the shit she did. And we couldn't leave the ashram. Master Charji said, "Don't leave the ashram," because there were riots in the street because people loved her, because she had bribed and won over all these people, but she was clearly corrupt. And my family had this kind of an immigration crisis where we overstayed our visa at the same time that the trial was taking place, right? And they let her walk, and they were celebrating in the streets. She was so popular, and she just stole all this money. She was like fucking completely corrupt. And these, ignorant, underdeveloped people just couldn't see it. Like, the truth community doesn't exist there. They don't have anything that resembles a truth community, because the people just are very, they bow to authority. And the legal brief that was written to convict her, which was overturned, was a large, it was a thick book, and the judge who overturned it, he wrote something that was about a paragraph long, right? Like, just not addressing any of the charges or any of the stuff. So, that happens on a global basis, and people just suck it up. Like in India, we would go to a movie, like a Marvel movie. This is back in 2012, 13. And we go to like a Marvel movie, 14, 15. And they would have intermissions, like every movie, like even short ones. Certainly the Marvel ones. And before the movie, they would play political commercials, and people would applaud the politicians. They would like cheer the politicians. Nobody would boo. I mean, this woman was corrupt, and some of her clips were showing, after this whole corruption trial, and my kids and I were like, "What the fuck is this?" Right? This is brutal. And so, democracy doesn't work because you can't let dumb fucks who don't have the ability. And again, that's maybe a mean way to put it, but that's what they are, right? They're not smart. They're not conscious. And, I wish they were all smarter than me. It would be great to be the dumbest person in the world to some extent. I guess that wouldn't be that great, but certainly to be the least spiritual person, that means everyone would be better than you and just, whatever. Like, you could count on people and you wouldn't, But it's not the case. And so you have all these people who, they have very limited consciousness, very limited comprehension. So how the fuck are they going to vote for anything? Like, voting would be stupid. It would be stupid to leave decisions in their hands. I mean, nobody would back that. No one in their right mind. If you go to Walmart, look around and go, do you think these people should be choosing their own leaders? I mean, they're making bad choices. You look in their grocery basket, like I always say, and they got a grocery basket full of poison, full of cancer and heart disease. And they know it. They're eating at fast foods and shoving all this fucking poison into their ghoul holes. They're just getting obese. They got obese little kids, and they're all running around, eating fucking toxic foods. And so, all these things are indicative of our civilization and what's going on, with everything. And so, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. But even smart people, any government, whether it be democracy or theocracy or, any kind of, even not anocracy, like any kind of government system, it's really about how the people are. Are your people awake, alive, and intelligent? Are they living natural lives? Are they good at assessing things? Are they morally good? Are they, service-oriented? Or are they selfish, dumb, entitled pieces of shit? And so as long as you have bad people, you're going to have bad leaders. Like, you're not going to even understand good people if you're a piece of shit, right? Like, you can't even see a good person when you're just a piece of shit. So even if whether you're voting or not or whatever, you're not going to respond to those good leaders And nobody in their right mind, no good person would want to be a fucking politician and deal with all the bullshit, right? Like, people have to get better. I say it all the time. It's very simple. You know, there have been saints here in the past, and there are saints here now. They're higher developed souls. There are people who are spiritual and service oriented. There are good people. There are people who are wonderful examples of human beings. It's a small number, but they're there. Why can't everybody be like that? Why can't everyone, strive to achieve something like that? You know, if you had a society full of Jesuses, which is completely easy to achieve, that's not even. It could be much better than that. Jesus was on the first rung of spirituality. Like, for people who do the Christian tradition, it seems like he's so far away because you're not even trying to, be a spiritual person. You're not trying to do a spiritual path. You're not working to connect to God. And so if people just did a minimum, a little bit of meditation and prayer, connecting to God, not maybe a little bit, but, enough to where you're connecting to God, and then expanding that over your life and, and learning to enjoy it and learning to, benefit from it. If people just did that, the world would be transformed. Just some effort, and then working on their character and all these things, working on being honest, being truthful, all the things that, are necessary. And if people did that, and it's not that hard, it's very easy. If people did that, the world would be transformed. But people don't want to do that. And so there's, then stop whining, right? Like, if you don't want to do it, why? I always say, you're expecting the worst of the worst, who are the politicians and all these people, the people who are the lowest of the low, and you're expecting them to change. Like, why do you think they're going to change? They're not going to change, right? All right, so it's a very simple idea, but like, there's no solving the problem, because the problem is the people, and people don't want to change, and will get better. So, there you go. All right, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse. In the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.